Hello, my name is Luby, and welcome back to Katawa Shoujo. Last time we had a super cute date, and his house condition is getting worse, and Lily got angry for some reason that I do not know when she fell. So, just keep going. This is strange. That single thought has graced my mind a countless number of times since my life here began. It feels like an easy way to discard a troubling question, as if simply labeling something with those three words will make it go away, or at least not worth thinking about any further. My life before my heart attack feels more blurry every time I try to remember it, and my mind struggles to keep up with all the events suddenly happening around me since. I heard somewhere that this is kind of what it feels like to be left stranded in a country with only the most basic understanding of the local language. Yeah, when I think about it, that seems a marvelously apt analogy for what's happened to me. But, but such situations are also supposed to make you very capable in that language very fast, as you're forced to learn it in order to survive. But another way, the situation becomes sink or swim. I wonder if I've really managed to swim after all this time. The exams are stressing me out a lot, even though they're finally coming to an end. But I have remained in Mato's favor, and I have some sort of direction for my future now. But I keep using that stupid, meaningless phrase. This is strange. It really is amazing how fast one comes to accept being surrounded by people with sometimes incredibly jarring disabilities and conditions. So much so that I really wonder why I feel so much like a foreigner. It certainly isn't for lack of socialization or friends. I've come to know most of my classmates on first name terms and know a few others around the school. Whether they're missing an arm or a leg, the students here are just like anyone else of their age. I can navigate the halls that I once lost myself in with an ease I not expected to ever have, thanks to the school's logical layout, and can engage my teachers in comfortable discussion. I swirl around gently the tea in my cup, the reflected image of my face becoming distorted by the moving liquid. This is strange. I used to hate drinking tea. Maybe I'm thinking too much. The familiar sound of china rattling from a teacup touching an accompanying saucer rings out. Is something the matter? Don't worry, it's nothing. I take a long sip of the tea in front of me as the girls do, just whiling away the time in Lily's room sipping tea with her and Hanako. It feels familiar, almost nostalgic. So, how's your work in the newspaper club? How's your work in the newspaper club going, Hanako? I want to know too. It sounds like it would be quite interesting. Hanako's face turns down at the attention placed upon her, though her smile belies the fact that she genuinely likes being the center of interest for the two of us. It's good. I think I'm getting better at it. Naomi and a couple of her friends handle most of the jobs, getting stories and stuff. I just do the computer things like putting the stories together and getting it printed. It's nice since I can sit and concentrate. I see Lily's low-tech nature isn't shared by Hanako. While sitting in a room compiling other people's newspaper articles into documents doesn't strike me as overly outgoing, it is heartening to see her widening her circle of friends. Baby steps, I guess. It's probably a bit much to be expecting her to become a socialite like Lily. How are you finding Naomi? I've heard she can be quite troublesome at times. And Lily's going into her mothering mode over Hanako. Letting go of her is something she's had to learn. Hanako scratches her cheek, thinking on her answer. Naomi's nice. She's a bit loud sometimes and a bit tiring. But she's really helpful. Her friends are nice too. That's wonderful to hear, Hanako. I'm glad you found a source of such enjoyment. Lily's smile is warm and genuine, but I can sense a touch of wistfulness to it as well. Hanako seems to miss that entirely, but I don't think for a second that I'm imagining it. I suppose it's because I've slowly come to pay more and more attention to everything going on around me. With things seemingly happening faster and faster, it feels like I'll miss something if I'm not as observant as possible. With the exams, my newfound love life, trying to fit in some studying regarding my options for college and university, and my heart condition applying the brakes on everything at irritatingly random times, my brain's been in overdrive recently. It makes me appreciate the rare quiet times such as these. I guess this is why Lily came to appreciate her weekly walks to the convenience store and her tea parties with Hanako, despite her like of being surrounded by others. They gave her a moment of peace in a chaotic and busy life. Thank God the exam's over, eh? The comment draws an earnest chuckle from both of the girls. It seems like everybody's been a lot happier since the exams ended last week. So, what are you doing for the summer holidays, Hanako? Only, I quickly count the days in my head. Today is Monday and school finishes on Saturday. 5 days to go, after all.
I was thinking of traveling, just around a bit. There's a lot of places I want to see, and I think I have enough money to pay for the bus and train rides. Naomi and one of the other girls in newspaper club said they might come along too.
Her look indicates she's given the matter quite a lot of thought. I'm kind of surprised that she's contemplating something like this. It seems she's really become intent on striking out on her own. Good for her, good for her. She's starting to become more independent. That's awesome. Although I wonder, because I know Hanako has a route, so like, I'm thinking like in Hanako's route is like one of the problems is that she becomes too dependent on Hisao and she needs to be more outgoing herself. I don't know. Guess we'll just see when we get to it.
Is there anywhere in particular you're thinking of going? I was thinking that Kyoto sounds nice. I think I'll try to go to a few places, though.
Lily nods in approval, happy with Hanako's plans. While I cast my eyes to Lily, I refrain from asking her the same question. She's been evasive with her plans for the future for a long time now, but I never seem to get a good time to broach the subject alone with her. Every time it comes up in conversation, it feels like she's either unsure of herself or simply dodging the question. It's troubling. Be sure to call us sometime while you're out and about. I gave you my number before, right? Hanako gives a quick nod, a happy smile on her face. It's strange to see how happy people seem to become when they have a goal to work towards. Yuko seems to brighten whenever university aspirations are brought up, and now Hanako is just the same. So, why do I still feel this uncertainty? And why Lily, too? Relationships really can be irritatingly troublesome sometimes.
Oh, what time is it?
Oh, it takes me a second to remember that Lily's clock doesn't have any visual feedback. I really should know, given how many times I've been in her room. Nevertheless, I take my watch from my bag and quickly check it, the reason for her asking becoming clear. It's about 20 past 10, nearly curfew. Hanako rises to her feet, dusting herself off and neatening her gown after doing so.
I'd better be going, then. Good night, Lily, Hisao. Sleep well, Hanako.
See you tomorrow. With that, she walks to the door and quietly makes her exit. ... Silence. This seems to be happening more and more between Lily and me recently. After a few seconds, I finally find something to talk about. Oh, yeah, I talked to Muto on Friday and finally checked out some guides on college and how to apply for it.
That's good news. If you're going to be applying for colleges, I assume you have some idea in mind of what you might do in the future.
I think I've settled on becoming a science teacher. Oh! It's gonna take a while to get through university and everything to be qualified, but I think it'll be worth it. Lily's face brightens considerably at the news. I suppose, with her wish to become a teacher, she's delighted I take the same kind of path.
So, you've decided on a career of teaching. I think that path suits you most excellently, Hisao.
I smile and nod. This time, even if I know she can't see me doing so, I know she feels it.
I imagine Muto would have taken to the news well.
That's one word for it. Hey, Lily?
Yes.
I know you want to be a teacher, but for a second, I wonder whether I should really ask her the question in my mind, but that's quickly brushed aside by the fact that this is rather late to have second thoughts.
Surely you don't think I'd still be offended by something regarding my blindness.
Her accusing tone is betrayed by her grinning face, amused at my awkwardness in raising the topic. Some things never change. Good point, I guess. I was just thinking whether or not being blind would be a hindrance with your ambition to become a teacher and all. She looks mildly surprised before giving the question some thought. I refuse to think she's never actually pondered this issue before.
I wonder, Hisao, could you close your eyes for a moment?
Okay. Raising an eyebrow, I do as she requests. I have no idea what she has in mind, and my questions only increase as I peek out from one eye. Taking the black ribbon she usually wears in her hair from the cabinet beside her bed, she advances towards me while running it through her fingers to remove any stray hairs remaining on the piece of cloth. I suddenly click onto her intentions as I feel a black strip make contact with my face, wrapping around my head and over my eyes. What exactly is this for?
It's a little test, Hisao. Since you seem to be wondering, I'll let you see things as I do for a time.
Though that's what it's about. To be honest, this actually sounds kind of fun. Childish and rather silly to anyone who would be watching, but a bit of silly fun never hurt anyone. I stand up with a heave, my hands quickly moving out in front of me to warn me of any obstacles. Okay, now what?
Now, touch me.
If you say so, now then. I slowly make my way forwards towards the sound of Lily's voice. My walking speed could barely even be called a shuffle, the entire experience feeling alien enough that I don't want to risk inadvertently tripping over anything, such as her table or her haphazard piles of books. Something soft, yet solid, brushes against my left leg. Further inspection reveals it to be Lily's bed. I move onwards, finding myself thankful that Lily's room is so neat and tidy. Even the piles of books she has are generally kept close to the wall, well out of harm's way. The hard wall pressing against my outstretched hands makes me furrow my brow in frustration. Hey, Lily, where are you?
What are you doing over there? I'm over here.
Lily's voice comes from the other side of the room, far from where it was before, even to my untrained ears. If she's going out of her way to avoid me reaching her, then is this just a game to her? Of course it is. Compared to a life where even the concept of sight is an abstract one, a few minutes in a blindfold are nothing. I guess she's made her point. She's more than capable of navigating her room, and farther, I've seen how independent she is even when compared to many of the others in Yamaku. Well, even if this is just a game, I may as well play it wholeheartedly. With a pace much quicker than before, I move towards the source of her voice, deftly sidestepping the table in the center of her room thanks to remembering its position. I've got you now! She gives an impish giggle, one just long enough to work out that she's passing just beside me. I quickly turn around to face the nudes, but the table wasn't there before! Oh! I slowly sit up next to the table, raising my blindfold as I rub my aching head. I give an irritated kick to the table that's sitting just in front of where I fell. Utterly pointless, but the thing deserved it.
Hisao?
Lily's still standing just to my side, obviously unsure of what's befallen me. Sorry, I kinda fell over.
Are you hurt?
My head hurts, but I think I'm okay. I think the table moved in order to trip me over. She giggles as she walks over and takes a seat beside me, her hand resting on my own.
I suppose that's the end of that, then.
I think so, but I also think I get the point, though I do wish it hadn't involved such a headache. Lily suddenly looks blank.
Point?
And I return an extraordinary flat look. That was just for fun.
I just thought it might ease you up a little about the subject. You always seem to tiptoe around it, after all. In regard to teaching, sight isn't that important. There are plenty of classes taught by entirely blind teachers, and more than enough resources for me to learn the subject. It's as simple as that, really.
I slump my shoulders and give a snort of amusement. Yeah, I understand. I guess we'll both just have to work hard to reach our goals, then. What is it? With little hesitation, Lily pushes forward her chin and closes her eyes in an unmistakable gesture. Wait a minute. The kiss CG is about to show up. There it is. I accept gladly, our lips touching. As they do so, I suddenly feel her hand snaking up my chest from underneath my shirt. The feeling of her hand against my bare skin is enough to make my heart suddenly accelerate. So she's in that kind of mood again. Oh no, hold on. Let me just take a sip of water. A long sip of water. Hold on, let me take another one. I just need to prepare for what's about to come. Okay. Well, I'm hardly one to complain. She does genuinely like this, and even with all my medications, my libido is thankfully still intact. I lean into the kiss further, holding her hand tightly as I feel it tracing the contours of my chest. Right now this isn't so awkward, but I expect in like 5 minutes it is gonna be. Eventually we break off from one another, the room silent before our breathing.
Hey, Hisao?
Yeah?
I don't suppose you could wear the blindfold again?
Oh god. Okay, time for okay. Her tentative suggestion takes me by surprise. Oh, okay. I suppose she wants to introduce me to sex through her eyes as well. Or just wants to find out what I'll be like during the act while hampered by the blindfold. Time for some kinky shit, boys. With a measure of unease tempered by curiosity, I do as she says and lower the blindfold over my eyes. The world becomes dark once again. Wait, the blindfold's on my head. That means I don't have to censor anything! Oh, let's go! I reflexively tense as I feel Lily's hand gently brush the side of my face, entirely unable to anticipate her touch. I really need to get more used to contact like this. Even after the weeks we've been going out, it isn't as natural for me as it is for her. Silence? Hey, Lily. Shh. I obediently follow her instruction and quietly listen, trying to make out something, anything that's happening around me. Compared to before when I was chasing Lily, the need to carefully navigate the room's obstacles now gone, I can take my time and concentrate much harder on listening. It takes a while, but I can eventually pick out the soft sound of her breathing in the otherwise dead silent room. In, out, in, out. Measuring it against my own breathing, I realize it's definitely deeper than normal, especially for her. Another sound makes its way to my ears, one that I can't identify immediately. I don't think I've heard it before, but my heart skips a beat as I realize the source, my hand almost reflexively reaching out towards it. Her face feels softer than usual under my touch, her head just barely turning in acknowledgement towards the fingers on her cheek. Hisao. I gulp and take a moment to try and calm down. I need all the concentration I can muster while I'm like this in order to fully take in my surroundings. After a few deep breaths, I think I've managed to collect myself. With a touch so light that it wouldn't disturb a feather, I start to move my hand down her body. And I can feel myself losing focus again, thanks to those thin, silken pajamas of her resting so perfectly over the... Sal, what is this, like the third time that you mentioned the curves? Come on, man. So perfectly over the curves of her body. If she's like this, then that means that she has to be sitting against her bed and facing me. Now, to continue. Alright, this must be her hip. If I just move slowly downwards, Lily's breath catches as my hand comes over hers, tentatively following her fingers between her legs and losing them as they go underneath her underwear. Okay. I know I've already had to read two of these, but those are kind of wild in the moment. This is more, I don't know, sensual, I guess. Just the slightest moisture touches my fingertips, but it's enough to easily work out what she's doing. My mind suddenly fills with visions of what she must be like in front of me right now. I'd never even imagined her doing this before, and being unable to see her doing the act only enhances the mood. I worked the blindfold upwards, brushing out of my eyes a couple of hairs that were stuck to the ribbon before. Why would you do that? Hisao, why would you do that? Now I have to censor this, come on, man! For a period of time I can only guess at, my mind goes completely blank. All I can do is stare as my newly freed eyes take in everything in front of them. Okay, yep. Surprisingly, that isn't as lewd as I thought it'd be, but, still gonna have to censor that. Just as I'd worked out, Lily sits in front of me, with one hand on the ground to stay herself, and the other's fingers lightly brushing between her legs, hidden by her dark blue underwear. I think it's the most erotic sight I've ever seen. Once again, I reach out and brush her hair from her face, her chin tilting outwards as she fills her pleasure-wrapped body with another breath of air. Lily looks oddly cute as she smiles at my calling her name. It always seems like it's at the moments when she's least attentive that she lets her most interesting emotions slip out. It's not long before she works her fingers over herself faster than before, her excitement evidently rising, the scent of her sweat in the air only echoing that fact. I sit in front of her. It's hardly as if my own arousal is holding still. It's taken every fiber of my being to let her continue by herself instead of pushing myself on top of her. It's strange. I'd initially found her clouded blue eyes to be distracting, almost disturbing in their lack of focus. That bothers me far less than it used to now. My attention refocused on her, as she lets out a whimper, her breath coming much faster than before and her hips suddenly rocking. No sooner do I realize how close to the edge Lily's become that her breath catches. Her eyes clasp shut as every muscle in her body seems to contract and she unmistakably reaches her climax. It's so weird to read this, For only a scant few seconds she tightens, huddled in ecstasy before her body relaxes and a long, drained sigh comes from her lips. I just have no idea what to say. Silence reigns while I simply watch her, hair hanging over her face as she sits exhausted. Hisao, When she reaches out to brush my face, my urges take complete control of my body. Without so much as a second thought, I push myself over her frame. It's an unusual feeling, being like this. I feel oddly powerful, holding myself above her blank face, as though, for the first time since the accident so long ago, I feel physically strong. Ahem! Ugh. Lily, I want you. To my surprise, she smiles weakly before reaching upwards to feel the side of my face. It's an almost cheeky expression, of the kind which she usually gives only after getting something out of me. You wanted me to do this? She holds her smile and gives a silent nod. I guess it was an effective way to make me take the initiative for once. And again, to my surprise, she gives the ribbon still around my head a sharp tug downwards. Once again, I'm lost in complete blackness.
I told you to keep it on, didn't I?
That teasing edge to Lily's voice, punctuated by her breathing. She never seems to lose her ability to take control of a situation. But this time, this one time,
Ah, Hisao, what are you?
I slide my hands underneath her soft silk. I slide my hands underneath her, soft silk and skin pressing into my hands. I gently raise her body, with a measure of difficulty. While I wouldn't describe her as heavy, her height makes her more than a handful to try and lift. It only takes a couple of carefully placed steps to feel the edge of her bed against my legs, my lowering of Lily onto her sheets just as gentle as when I raised her. Your bed will be more comfortable than the floor, right?
Always a gentleman, aren't you?
I quickly run my hands down Lily's long, shapely legs, their allure far from diminished without the luxury of sight, and pull off her pajama shorts and underwear from her ankle. I have no idea where those just went. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. They'll be somewhere around. With a minimum of fuss, I shuffle down my own pajama trousers and underwear, positioning myself between her legs. Or, at least, where I think is between her legs. With one hand on her bed to steady myself, my right moves tentatively downwards. Whoops. My first contact with her is my palm clumsily meeting the front of her nose. She giggles a little before turning her head sideways. Taking my cue, I gently cradle her cheek and use my thumb to feel the contours of her face, as she does so often with me. This would be a lot easier if she wasn't moving her face into my hand, but the feeling of her nuzzling into it is nice. I swallow to try and steady myself, take my other hand from the bed, and use it to guide myself into her. I'm just really glad I don't have to censor any of this. As soon as I feel her warmth around me, I quickly realize just how, sexually aroused I am right now. With my sight gone, I'm free to concentrate far more on my other senses, including tactile feeling. The entire experience feels more vivid, more intense than it's been before. I slowly start to move my hips back and forth, my heart beating wildly in excitement. I feel Lily's eyes clenching shut, the movement of her cheek under my thumb reminding me of the gentle hold I have on the side of her face. It's hard to stop myself from being completely overwhelmed. It's hard to think that this is what sex is usually like for her, experienced through every sense but the one I hold dearest. From her cheek to her neck, I begin to slide my hand downwards to take in the feeling of her body, the contours of her collarbone, the light dew resting on her skin. My sense of smell is stimulated by the scent of her sweat and mine hanging in the air. Even the ambient smell, noticeably different from that in my own room, adds to the feeling. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I could just, disable all adult content, but I don't know, I feel like scenes like this make it so I really don't want to, with the whole blindfold thing going on right now. I think it's thematically appropriate. When I move my hand to her supple roar, her soft mewling fills my ears, along with the sound of her act. The skin under my hand moves back and forth with each thrust, my grip on it tightening as my lust for the near-naked body of Lily before me grows. I can even feel her against my palm. My hand slides further and my fingers pluck it through the silk of her pajama top. Her whimpering sound turns to moans as she fills with the same pleasure as I. I can feel my heart beating loudly in my chest and her own beating underneath my hand. If I can learn how to make my voice better and not stutter as much, I could probably be an audiobook reader. And by audiobook, I mean any kind of audiobook, because if I can read this, then I can get through anything, man. I can feel her hands clasp my wrists, their grip surprisingly tight as her chest rises in the overwhelming pleasure. I'm not gonna say that, but you can read it. Oh god. I can feel my chest tightening as I rock back and forth frantically, both of us entirely taken with ourselves. Nothing that unusual. I just need to take deeper breaths to steady myself. This feeling is just normal. This isn't. I can't. This pain is too much. I stumble backwards from Lily with unseemly haste, clumsily hitting the back of my foot against the table and falling to the ground with an unceremonious crash. Breathing wildly, I frantically scrape at the ribbon over my eyes as I lay on my back. I have to get this off. I have to get this off. For a moment, everything goes blank as the rush of newfound light assaults my eyes. My breathing slows from the brink of hyperventilation. Oh God. Seconds pass, and I carefully measure out the rhythm of my heartbeats with every ounce of concentration I can muster. My heart is normal. It's back to normal. My body feels utterly bizarre as I lay dazed on the floor looking at the ceiling. The adrenaline from before is still pouring through my veins, but my mind is completely exhausted. I prop myself up as I hear Lily getting off the bed and coming towards me. Hisao, are you okay? Hisao? I'm fine, Lily, I'm fine. She gives a sigh of relief, her worried expression collapsing. Her face afterward is the very last I'd ever wanted to see from her. It's a face I detested when I first saw my parents in the hospital all those months ago. Pity. Lily pities me. I just close my eyes and turn away, powerless. I feel like throwing up. I can hear the sound of Lily moving away and quickly attending to herself, the ruffling of her clothing being pulled back on after a moment of searching just barely audible. Sorry. She slowly shakes her head as she finishes buttoning up her top. Her kind smile looks, sorry, I skipped that. Her kind smile looks so fragile, so delicate that it makes my heart sink. Approaching carefully, she feels out the edge of the low table before taking a seat next to me, putting her arms around my chest. I'm sorry, Hisao. I shouldn't have pushed my desires onto you. You don't need to apologize. I'd normally be fine. You've seen that much before. I guess I shouldn't have tried to push myself so far. My eyelids feel heavy. Calmly sitting next to her like this is probably letting the adrenaline work itself out of my system and letting my mind relax. So that's why you never took the lead? Yeah, I guess it's a good thing you like to, huh? The joke seems to lighten her expression a little, a fact which helps me feel less uneasy about my unreliable self. Lily's head comes to rest on my shoulder as I struggle to keep my eyes open, with more difficulty after each blink. I feel completely drained. It's okay, Hisao. It's all okay. No sooner does she say this than a small, quiet tune escapes her lips. Entirely too tired to think, all I can do is listen to her soft humming. It's a soft, almost melancholic tune. It sounds familiar, but the more I try to remember its origin, the less I seem able to concentrate. Is it the tune from the music box? The feeling and scent of her head gently resting on my shoulder and her warm body against my side are soothing. The soft humming of her voice, too, relaxes my mind as much as her warmth relaxes my muscles. This singular, quiet moment, after all this fracas, makes me realize just how exhausted I've become. I can feel my eyelids slowly becoming heavier and heavier. Even with the chaos of before, I wish this moment would last forever. Lily and I together, sharing a single, solitary occasion together, just as we used to. But if that's the case, why does she feel farther away than she's ever felt before? Well, damn, that was a really serious moment, huh? Uh, damn. Okay, well, I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, I had to narrate all the uncomfortable stuff, but that was very, troubling. Man, it just sucks, man. Like, his house heart condition and everything. Yeah, I think the right term to describe it is, it sucks. Because that was scary as hell, man. I thought he was gonna, like, collapse and pass out. Oh, okay. The loud clatter of books falling into the return slot abruptly breaks the grip of silence over the school library. It's become a habit for me to come to the library at least once a week. Not only does the reading itself keep me busy, but discussing books with Hanako and Lily also does. Obviously startled, Yuko suddenly twists towards the direction of the noise. I'd have thought her used to people dropping books by now since she does work here.
Oh, hello, Isao. Back again?
It takes me a moment to respond, my mind still distracted by the familiar melody of Lily's humming that hardly left my ears since the several days it's been since I fell asleep to it. Oh, yeah, just returning some books I borrowed. She casts her eyes downwards, presumably to bin the books dropped into.
You're a very heavy reader, aren't you?
It's become a bit of a routine now. Passes the time, at least.
I think I gave,
Yuko's voice to Hanako, so I have to, develop a new thing for Yuko at this point.
I wish I had free time to pass.
From small talk to depression in less than 5 seconds. I think it's a new record for her. She seems a bit down in general today, even compared to normal. Considering she has to work 2 jobs just to support herself, I could see how that would take a toll on her lifestyle. Come to think of it, the pay for her job here can't be all that bad. The idea of staff in such a prestigious private school going hungry strikes me as counterintuitive. Working 2 jobs must take a lot of time. I probably never manage it.
You're lucky being a student. You think you'll be able to go to university?
If she's asking, then I guess that's the expected result of having this kind of education. Private schools like this don't exactly come cheap. I guess. I have the money, I think. I've got plans which will require going to one, and my grades are good enough. It's more of a matter of how I'll pay to do so.
University costs so much that I'm having to work 2 jobs to afford to enter it. Paying for daily expenses too makes it a lot harder. If you're reading this much, though, that means you're doing well in school, right?
Interesting logical jump. Not an altogether wrong one, though. I suppose so. I didn't find any of the exams very hard, aside from maybe 1 or 2. Do you mind if I ask what studies you're pursuing in university?
Yuko appears to genuinely brighten at the question. Anthropology. To be specific, I'm specializing in the history of classical-era Athenian civilization and democracy.
She really seems to know her stuff. Such enthusiasm is to be admired, and it's nice to see her genuinely excited about something. I'm still kind of riled up from the past scene where I had to breathe heavily and scream. But so let me just take a long sip of water and just. And that's the water bottle finished. Huh. I guess even somebody like Yuko can be happy if she has a visible road ahead of her. That's good to hear. If you... Both of us jump at the sudden interruption coming from my pocket. Apologizing profusely and quickly shuffling to the hallway as I fumble to cover my mobile phone, I glance at the screen. Weird. It's a mobile number I don't recognize. Considering I can count the number of people with my number on one hand, I briefly wonder whether it's some telemarketer that lucked out. Hello, Asao Nakai speaking. Geez, pick up faster next time. Anyway, guess who? It only takes me a second to recognize the distinctly deep, brusque voice. Oh, it's Misha. Hey, Misha. Didn't expect you to call me. Huh? You actually thought... Huh? You actually thought You actually think I sound like her? Not at all, Akira. I don't remember giving you my number, though, so I thought I'd mess with you. Oh, that. I got Lily to give it to me. Not hard. She positively brims with pride at the statement. She's trying to get me caught up in her pace, I know it. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised if the two would share my number, though, given how close they are. So, what's up? You free right now? I guess. Why? Could you meet me at the park in town? I just want to talk to you about some stuff. Is that an invitation to a date? What? Of course not! She sounds suddenly crestfallen, her previous teasing nature having instantaneously left. It seems strange for her. Anyway, I don't see why not. When do you want to meet? Kinda... now-ish. Wait, right now? But it's... The dead sound suddenly coming from the phone announces the fact that she is unceremoniously hung up. For a long time, I just stand there, staring at the call-ended message on the screen while replaying the conversation in my head. What the hell, Akira? Throwing a glance up and down the street, I cross the road and step into the park. I have learned to pace myself on such walks, mostly because Lily's slower speed during our forays into town means I have to consciously slow myself down. That aside, I hope Akira didn't expect me to be immediately prompt.
Whoa, look at that, it's Akira.
It takes only a couple of seconds to spot her, waiting on a bench with a can of beer in her hand. The look she gives me as I walk up lacks any hints of acknowledgement or greeting. What's with that look? I needn't have come, you know. I knew you would. You're that kind of person, after all. I lower my brow to remark as she disposes of the can, emptied by the time I arrived, and a metallic clatter rings out. Akira takes a seat on the old wooden bench, and I follow her lead. She takes another can of beer from beside her and opens it before speaking, taking a large gulp. She seems to really like that stuff. I suppose I don't need to ask what this is about, or rather, who it's about? I heard from Lily that you asked about her family. They share more than phone numbers, that's for sure. I'd probably be very worried right now if it weren't for the total lack of malice in her voice. Rather, her tone sounds almost wistful. Idle curiosity, mostly. I have to admit, I'd never have guessed you two were half Scottish. She gives a wry chuckle of amusement. I've heard that before, trust me. The small smile falls from her face, her eyes looking ahead distantly. Aside from the occasional elderly couple talking as they slowly walk the meandering paths and the odd aging car, it's pleasantly quiet. She didn't tell you everything, though, did she? It was pretty brief. Your parents live in Scotland, and she hasn't met them since she was 12, and she wants to meet them again. It's always surprised me how devoted she is to our parents for all the good they did us. The way she says it all sounds almost derisive. She gives a small sigh as if to quickly brush the feelings away. I feel like there's something stuck in my throat, you know, like ah. Like I've been tripping on words a lot because there's something. Deep breath. Maybe I just need to calm down. Maybe that'll help me read better. Why do you think they left, Asao? Why do I think they left? From what Lily told me, it was because of work. I guess a pretty decently paying job was involved as well, given the way your parents seem to live. So Lily went to a private school, and that's why she carries herself with the airs and graces of the upper class. Yeah, since the business in Inverness boomed, our father decided to move directly to the same city as its headquarters. That's just a conclusion I thought you'd come to, though. You're too good-natured. You don't think they left for their career? I'm sitting here bitching to you about it. What do you think? Yamaku Academy. I've always felt that place was kind of creepy. Like it was an isolated hideaway for those proper society doesn't want to see nor hear. They probably just rue the fact that Lily wasn't old enough to be shoved there by the time they left. A long silence follows her abrupt and very harsh criticism of her own parents and Yamaku. Lily's blindness is hardly something that could be simply ignored for a high-class family attempting to keep up appearances, much less so when a lucrative offer is on the table. Eventually, Akira gives a derisive snort, her feelings coming to a head. Moving to secure a financial future with his new job posting. Even at the time, I hardly believed it. Not wanting to be an avenue for venting, I gently try to steer the discussion. So you stayed in Japan with Lily, then? Either I stayed with her, or she went to live with an ailing grandmother and grandfather. What about Shizune's family? If you're cousins, then... Our fathers hate each other. I'd have been more than happy to tell them to go screw themselves and live with them anyway. But Lily wouldn't have wanted that. I'd also had an offer for a job by then, so we did our best to keep our parents' house in proper shape and try to continue our lives as if they never left. So you just lived by yourselves? Basically. Lily had school and I had my job, so we weren't exactly languishing. With her schooling, her study, and having to do chores while I worked, though, I can't help feeling like I failed her. In the end, I tried to be there for her and screwed it up. Expecting a 19-year-old to be a mother for a blind child, it's ridiculous! So Lily and Akira lived alone after their parents moved, with Lily largely taking care of herself. I guess that explains her apparent independence compared to many in Yamaku. I may have lived alone much of the time since my parents both worked, but that's just something else entirely. Sorry for making you listen to my moaning, Sao. I don't mind at all, but do you mind if I ask why you're telling me all this? You always were curious. Context, I suppose. Life isn't a fairy tale, Sao. Some people have to learn that the hard way. She takes a long drink from the can in her hand, her face becoming more depressed than distant. I broke up with my boyfriend a few days ago. After I leave, we're not going to be able to see each other again. But that's how life is. You can't just set your life up and expect it to stay that way forever. Sometimes stuff happens that you have to roll with, even if it means hurting yourself or others. Okay, but don't think I didn't catch that. Okay, wait. Oh my god. Someone is calling me on Discord right now. Here's hoping that doesn't pick up on the recording. But, what does this mean? Hold on. Uh, After I leave, we're not gonna be able to see each other again. Oh, right. Akira is apparently leaving to Scotland, right? She takes a long breath before looking up at the bright orange sky. Damn, if I smoked, I could take a nice long drag right about now and look kinda cool. I want to respond to help her in whatever way I can, but I feel utterly useless. This kind of situation is one I've never been in, and I simply don't have the experience to say anything meaningful to comfort her. Akira looks over and evidently picks up on this, much to my embarrassment. I must look pretty pathetic right now, whining about this to someone I barely know. Hardly, and I'm pretty much an expert in looking pathetic. She gives a chuckle, the act feeling like a personal victory for me. Ha! You're a good kid, Hisao. When I said that I approved of you being with my sister, I wasn't joking or just being nice. She picks herself up off her seat with her grunt, one that seems ill-fitting given her age, and throws the now empty can into the bin after one last swig. It's just unfortunate that it doesn't really count for much in this world. When I said that I was leaving for Scotland, I was doing it because a good position opened up in our company's headquarters. When our folks told me that when we were at their place, though, they also gave Lily a summons to rejoin them in Inverness. No way. Wait. Her evasiveness when asked about her future, that awkwardness that had steadily grown between us, that uncharacteristic outburst of anger, all of them suddenly fit into place. The same family that she reminisced about after Haneko's birthday party, the same family that left her and Akira to themselves after taking flight to greener pastures. Now I feel stupid for never cornering Lily on what was bugging her. I've never even considered if something had happened during her trip to her family's home in Inverness, and now a sense of unease grows in my chest. If her family has summoned her to join them in Scotland, all the way on the other side of the earth, has she accepted? Lily hasn't told me whether she plans to accept, and it seems she hasn't told you either. That's why I called you down here to talk, Hisao. Context, huh? I sit back, my feelings of worry and frustration no doubt written all over my face. Lily's a strong person, Hisao, but she's not infallible. I guess it's my job to worry about her, being her older sister, but I think that you deserve to know. I understand. You okay? You sound depressed. No, I'm just thinking. That's good. Thinking is good. Being rash won't get you anywhere. She looks at her watch, barely moving her wrists. I've got to go. Will you be okay? I'll be fine, don't worry. I'll have to talk to Lily about it and get everything sorted out. She gives a smile, but it doesn't feel all that genuine or sincere. Really, both of us are dancing around the fact that Lily's on the precipice of the biggest decision of her life and is trying to take the entire burden on herself. Part of that burden is the matter of our relationship. By the time I look up, Akira's already walking off with her hand held up. For the first time in a long while, I finally have an answer to something. Perhaps not even that, but at least I now have the right question to ask. Will you leave or stay? Well, for what it's worth, I really hope she stays. Okay, well, here's the thing. I'm gonna leave you on a cliffhanger here. You know, I'm sorry, but that's just kind of what I'm gonna do now. Damn. Well, I really hope Lily stays. Damn, that's a truck to handle right there. I feel like I just got hit by one. Ugh. Well, that has been this episode of Katawa Shoujo. I hope you enjoyed. Next time, I hope we ask Lily the question of whether she wants to leave or stay. I really hope she stays. I mean, look, I know there are, like, bad endings and good endings. I really hope I'm on the track to a good ending where she stays instead of leaves. I don't know. But thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode and just the whole series in general. This whole game has been phenomenal. Can't wait for next time. Peace.